The Campo and Joe podcast is brought to you by Bold City Heating and Air. Fast and reliable AC service.
Welcome in, Campo and Joe, fired up and ready to go. Facebook Live, we appreciate it if you guys are tuning in right now to 1010XL or anytime you pick up our podcast, listen to us, watch us, whatever it might be. This much I know. We are in training camp time, Coach Dave Campo.
I tell you what, you are absolutely right. It's football time around here. I kind of got excited about it a little bit more with the SEC media days. You know, listen to coaches, listening to players that come in there. Got me a little pumped up.
Yeah.
But listen, when the rookies came in, and now it's the real deal starting tomorrow.
Oh, you better believe it. And so I feel like we're going to try and attack this just like you guys would expect. We're going to be looking at the roster. We're going to be taking a look at the camp battles. We're going to be out there a bunch. We know that you probably will be out there as well. Make sure you go to Jaguars.com, get your ticket. I think I saw earlier today, Coach, there's already a couple of the days that are sold out.
Listen, the city's excited.
Yeah.
You know, I think they can feel the fact that last year was an anomaly, the last 5 or 6 games, hopefully. And I think there's a lot of excitement about not only what the Jaguars are doing, but this is going to be a tough division.
Yeah.
And I think that cranks people up too. You know, you learn to hate the Titans, and now you hate the Texans, and you never liked the Colts.
Yeah.
So let's get going.
Yeah, exactly. This is a division that has improved in a lot of different ways, including what they've done here in Duval. But the other ones, it's not like they're sitting back, standing pat. The Houston Texans are the biggest example of that. They won a playoff game with a first-year head coach, a first-year quarterback, and then they went out and started just basically no sticker shock, whatever. They just went out and started buying pieces.
Yeah, I think people felt that maybe the Jags sat on their hands a little bit last year going into the season. You know, an 8-3 start, everybody thought, well, you know, maybe they knew something that everybody else didn't. Right. And I really do think they did. In my opinion, this team is good enough to win the division. But what they did was they went out this year and got some free agents, just like they did 2 years ago, that I think improves the football team. So when you look at that part of it, you know, you can say they made a mistake. You can say that the Texans went out, but you don't know what the Texans did until you line up and play some games. So we're going to find out. That's the great thing about it. It's the competition.
You have learned as a former head coach and a longtime assistant in the National Football League that just because you go out and sign guys and bring them in, change their zip code and their mailing address, doesn't mean they're going to come in and play and be all of that. We don't know if Joe Mixon, Daniil Hunter, Danico Autry, any of these guys are going to translate. Stephon Diggs, there's a reason why Buffalo ate $30+ million worth of cap space just to say, see ya. Yeah,
and that's a little different than not having enough cap space to keep a guy. You know, that's the real deal. They don't like something about him and what he brought to the table.
Yeah.
So, you know, guys like that can help you. They can hurt you as well.
All right, so let's start out with the biggest news of the day, and then let's just start kind of tilting towards training camp. Tyson Campbell gets a deal, and this is something we had talked about a bunch during the offseason. Matter of fact, I was having a little conversation with a Jaguar fan yesterday that says, what's the rush? And I'm basically on the side of the fan. Has he done enough to earn a long-term contract? We've certainly seen flashes, but here we are, Coach. 24 years of age, 4-year, $76.5 million contract extension, average 19.1 per year, the highest for any cornerback that has yet to be named to a Pro Bowl. So let's just use that as our backdrop. Guaranteed $50+ million. I don't know. I'm okay with it, but I'm not like super jacked up about this deal.
Yeah, and I kind of feel the same way with that. But I think the one thing that the fans have to understand is that, and I've said this about Trevor's contract, you know, we as media people, and I consider myself a media guy now, even because I'm not in that building.
Right.
I don't look at things the same way they do. As a matter of fact, even with the full 22 on Premium Plus.
Mm-hmm.
I don't look at every single play of every game.
Right.
Well, people in the building do. And anytime you do something with a contract or in the draft or in free agency, it's a gamble.
Yeah.
It's subjective.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're in a situation where guys are looking at things and they're projecting.
Right.
What can this guy do to help us?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Help us win. And when you get a guy that has shown flashes of being a guy that you can count on to be the number one corner, you gotta look at it, because that's a position, just like the quarterback position is, that's extremely important.
Yeah, and look, I don't want to minimize what Tyson Campbell may represent. They made the decision to pay him, not me. But the thing is I say to myself, okay, Josh Allen proved that he was worth an extension mightily. Trevor Lawrence, the importance of the position made it so, where he was next in line. He didn't necessarily prove that he was deserving of it this last year, or for that matter, 60 turnovers over 3 years' time. But he still displayed enough with what he was doing at the most important position that said, hey, we can't let this guy go. We got to pay this guy, and we got to pay him now. All right, so let me just give you this. Like I said, he was a second-round pick, the first pick of the second round when he came into the league. 2022, he had a special year like a lot of other guys, especially down the stretch. But this last year, Coach, he battled injuries, and I'm just going to give you these numbers. You could take them for whatever they're worth.
Right.
Solo tackles, 4 dozen. That's T42nd, tied 42nd among cornerbacks. Targets, he had 80 targets against him, tied 64th. Receptions allowed, of those 80 targets, 42. That's over 50%. Catch rate, that's tied 50th. And 1 interception, tied 42nd. Those are not like outstanding numbers to make him one of the higher paid cornerbacks.
Yeah, to me, again, I look at it from the standpoint, what kind of talent does he have? Does he have the right makeup? And I'm not sure that people understand the importance of that. You know, Trevor Lawrence has the right makeup, in my opinion, to warrant the contract.
Right.
Well, Tyson Campbell obviously has shown them that he has the right makeup in order to make that decision. The injuries are a factor, but I'm going to tell you another factor. I guarantee you that Doug Peterson knows that they've got to make improvement this year going forward, right?
Yeah.
I guarantee you that he's put a lot of faith in Ryan Nielsen. And when Ryan Nielsen looks at those guys on that roster, I guarantee you he had the ability to go in and say, look, this guy fits my scheme.
Right. And
if you trust me and I'm the guy, then we need to get guys that are going to be guys that we keep on our roster that have the right makeup, they fit my scheme, and the talent to progress.
Right.
If he's smart and he has character, which I believe he does, he can continue to develop.
Okay, I like where you went there with the Ryan Nielsen piece. I'm just going to add to it, because not only did he choose Tyson to stay, he said goodbye to the other guy.
Correct.
He said goodbye to Darius.
And believe me, what I know of Ryan Nielsen and his scheme, that's the right decision. Because I don't believe, and I don't want to disparage.
Sure, it's just he didn't fit.
His game doesn't necessarily fit his scheme, and you're going to pay the guy a lot of money.
The other part of it is that you're paying guys that came through your draft and have been in your locker room.
Keep your guys that you think have the ability to help the football team and have the character and the makeup to help you going forward.
Yeah, I do feel like that is a big part of this. And so let's just at least kind of wrap up this conversation. Tyson Campbell, if you take a look at that draft, you know that you're basically trying to secure your 2021 draft when you had the number 1 overall pick in Trevor Lawrence. You've locked him up. He's good to go. And then in 2022, you had Trayvon Walker as the number 1 overall pick, and you were hoping like heck that that this guy turns a major corner. And then we can go down the line with all the other ones. But the bottom line is Andre Cisco, Tyson Campbell, Walker Little, these guys that they drafted, that you want to make sure you are building a roster that makes plays and continues to make plays in Duval.
That's what those guys, this is the time that they come to the front, in my opinion, because, there are some guys that immediately step in and go, but the vast majority of them take a little while to get going.
Right.
And so if you're going to validate your draft, this is the time to do it right now.
Yeah, it really does boil down to that they feel like, and this is something that Leon has preached over and over and over, Leon Cersei on XL Primetime, that you need to pay the guys that are in your building before you go get guys outside of your building.
It shows that you have confidence in the guys in the locker room, and it shows them, if I do what I'm supposed to do, I'm going to get to the second contract, which is the big contract, and that has not been a positive for the Jaguars over history. So, that's part of it.
And you start looking at the number of players that have not been re-signed, and we've been over it really over and over and over, just talking about how many guys did not get a second contract. You're now giving guys extra money to stay instead of saying goodbye and saying, hey, we tried, it didn't work out. Yeah. And if you're looking at that particular year, T-Law gets his deal. You can expect ETN after the player option that was picked up, and he plays 5 years. They may say goodbye simply because of the position. He may be affordable to keep. Not quite sure, but the running back position is just as it is. Anyway, T-Law, Tyson Campbell, and then you've got the decisions that you're going to make after that. Does Walker do enough to keep his job? Andre Cisco, those are the next two big pieces out of that draft class.
Yeah, and I go back a little bit to the effect that Ryan Nielsen has on it. It's a little different situation what I'm going to say right now, but when I was with the Cowboys as a defensive coordinator, I made decisions on who fit our scheme and who didn't fit our scheme.
Right.
When I was a secondary coach, I made those same decisions as far as our scheme in the secondary. We had Dexter Coakley, Dot Wynn, and Darren Smith were our three linebackers. There were a lot of teams in the league that would not have extended them.
Okay.
Because they were small linebackers.
Sure.
Well, in our scheme, we had the big guys up front.
Yeah.
And we're going to have our linebackers that can run to the sideline. They didn't have to be real big, and that's how those guys stayed. So I believe that Nielsen had a hand in the Campbell situation.
Really do like the prospects of what's happening on that side of the football. Doug making sure that things get cleaned up on the offensive side of the football. And I feel like we've seen a tighter coach team during OTAs in the minicamp. So let's shift it into training camp. And I'm not speaking for you, but I'm pretty sure you've been steadfast in saying that. Yeah. This team looks like they're more organized, more polished, and more prepared.
Absolutely. And again, you don't know until the season starts what's going to happen, but I have a positive feeling about the way guys are doing drills, the way guys are, integrating these young guys. And again, we were only there for three practices, the entire time, other than the minicamp. We were there for the minicamp a little bit. But, again, on a quick observation, I think they know. One of the advantages I had, and I didn't stay for the offensive side because, I'm counting on Doug Peterson knows what he was doing. But when the coaches had their meeting with the media, I was in there for the defensive coaches. And I listened to those guys talk.
Yeah.
And I was really impressed with the way they talked about what they were looking for, what they had, how they were going to do it.
The Campo and Joe podcast is brought to you by Bold City Heating and Air. Fast and reliable AC service.
So, I'm positive with this coaching staff, and hopefully that's going to be the case.
Yeah, all you can do is go off of what you think you have gleaned, learned, or whatever, or witnessed. And now it comes down to, is the information going to flow freely from coach to coach, from coach to player? Is a teammate going to pull another one up? who's ready to rise, all these things that you need to be thinking about.
And another thing, 2 of those defensive coaches coached at Central Connecticut.
Yeah. So
one of them played at Central Connecticut.
Yeah.
So I know those guys are ready to roll.
And that's his alma mater. So he's proud of that. That's for sure. But that really is it, is that you're just trying. All right, so let's just kind of look a little bit right now. And since you brought up the defense, we'll stay on that side. I want to finish up with the biggest camp battle that you think we're setting ourselves up for. But staying on the defensive side, you're looking at, I want to start with Devon Hamilton and Eric Armstead. Eric Armstead starts off training camp on the PUP, physically unable to perform, and we're going to have to wait and see how long he stays on there. And then you have Devon Hamilton coming back from what was a significant injury that really slowed him down in 2023. What do you think of those two, the interior part of that line?
Well, first of all, I think Armstead speaks for himself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to see a lot of Armstead.
No. I just want him to stay healthy.
Yeah, and the biggest thing is that they knew he was going to end up on PUP. I could see he wasn't practicing.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't need to practice until you start getting closer to where you're going to open up, because his value is just as much off the field as it is on the field in this situation. Yeah. So there's no question he's a good player. If he's healthy, he's going to help this football team a lot with the interior. Now, Devon Hamilton, that's a key one in my mind.
Right.
Because we saw him. He earned the contract that he got when he was healthy and played.
Yeah.
He's a load. 300 plus pounds, and not only run defense wise, but he has a little bit of pressure opportunity.
Yeah, he moves and he gains leverage, and his hands are up there.
Yeah, so to me, that's going to be a critical one. And what I saw in minicamp on the sled, and I looked at the sled a little bit because I kind of look for the power. Who has the power? Well, he's got power. And so that's a big one to me. And I think if he comes back and he's 100%, which it looks like he is,
right,
that's going to be a big factor. That's important because, you win stopping the run and running the ball. So those two things, that up front defense is important.
And if we, this will be the one thing, you may get tired of hearing me saying it, they couldn't get a 3rd and 1, and they couldn't stop a 3rd and 1. And so those things they absolutely need to do this year, and they need to do it at a much higher effective rate. But going back to the mini camp, Devon Hamilton was one of the guys that I was surprised to see when they gave a lot of the veterans off for the mini camp.
Right.
He was out there putting work in, and you and I watched him. This was particularly, I don't know, one of the days inside in the indoor facility. And I'm just telling you, he looks ferocious right now. Now, is that Jaguar good or is it NFL good?
Well, it also
without pads.
And also are the guys they're going against halfway decent too. Now remember, no pads.
Yeah.
So that's different. But I look at explosion, power, and I already saw him have the ability to run.
Right.
And also to have the ability to make some moves to put a little pressure on the quarterback. So that's what I'm looking at. Not so much from the minicamp or but he's out there because of the fact that he didn't play much last year, and he didn't play at the level that he was capable of.
And I love that eagerness.
No, he likes football. He earned the contract, Joe.
Yeah.
The contract he got, he earned.
And the thing is that if he learns anything from Eric Armstead playing next to him, the fact that these two guys might be able to do something good together, Eric will put his arm around him and say, here's how we're going to get this done. The rotation is going to be really, really important.
Absolutely. That's one of the keys, in my opinion. How well is Jefferson and Mason Smith and, those guys going to be able to, keep that rotation going.
Right. And we don't really know exactly alignment-wise. We know we basically know 4 hands on the ground, but we don't know Roy Robertson-Harris, Adam Gossis, if he does make the team, and some of these other guys, like you just mentioned, the rookies in Mason Smith and Jordan Jefferson. We don't exactly know how they're going to rotate them in and out.
Right, and it's got to be a rotation. I think one of the reasons that we kind of faltered at the end of the year was the fact that guys got worn out because they didn't have a good rotation.
No.
And I've seen Nielsen's teams in Atlanta where it was a rotation all the time.
Yeah,
so,
remember the stat we would repeat. Nobody had more than 7 sacks.
Yeah,
correct. So a lot of guys that were getting after the quarterback, and you know me, I was screaming Angelo Blackson and names like that last year.
Yeah.
That they just basically pulled them off the street and brought them in and signed them. So I feel like I'm sharing in your excitement that Ryan Nielsen,
absolutely.
he could be as big a free agent as this football team's got.
Yeah.
All right, so let's wrap up on the offensive side of the ball. Let's stay on the offensive line. What do you think? I may have just put words in your mouth because you're the one who led us to this last week. What do you think the biggest training camp battle will be?
Well, that's an easy one for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the offensive line in general it's going to be really important because I'm not 100% sure what's going to happen because we saw one of the same group with the exception of Morse.
Yeah.
We saw one that was pretty decent 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
We saw one that wasn't very good last year. So I'm hoping that the injury situation and, again, what they see in the room and the emphasis more on the run game is going to make a difference with this group. But the battle, to me, is going to be Walker Little against Cam Robinson. And to me, it's Cam Robinson has to earn his position. It's not guaranteed that he's going to be the starting tackle.
All right, I think that's a good way to put it. He has to, and as soon as you said earn, I'm like, wait a minute, Coach, earn. He's had it, but he's got to earn the right to keep it. And so I do get exactly what you're saying. And so let's just boil this down real quick. This will come down to, in training camp time, you're only going to see these two guys in 2 preseason games. You might see a little bit of it in the third game with Walker maybe playing more, okay? But you're going to see him in a limited amount of time. So most of this is going to happen in training camp practices.
Yep.
And so you're going to have to find out, is Cam Robinson doing what he's supposed to be doing to maintain his job and be the best he can possibly be? And is the other guy hungry enough and crafty enough to come get him?
Yeah, I couldn't say it any better than you just did.
Mm-hmm.
But it also has something to do with what he has done in the offseason leading up to training camp, both of them.
Right.
Because I think that figures in. You got a young guy and an old guy. When I say old, been around for a while. Walker Little, it's, has he done enough in the offseason to warrant the competition? Has Cam Robinson done enough in the offseason to indicate to the club that he's all in? And I think that's where the issue is going to be. And again, I've seen Cam Robinson. As far as his mentality and his toughness and what he brings to the table, that's a plus. I've seen Walker Little play tackle. His ability athletically and ability to protect the passer is probably better than Cam Robinson. Now, has his mentality reached the point where you can trust him to do both? He's got to be able to run the football with a little bit of physicalness, and he's got to be able to protect the quarterback. Which one of those is going to make the final decision?
Cam was given, at least the bulk of his career, was given a lot of love for being a good run blocker. And then this run block win rate, again, metrics, you could take them or leave them, depending on if you're a fan of PFF or not, but they did not grade him particularly high when it came to what people viewed as his strong suit. They didn't run the ball well last year. We know that. But aptitude, attitude, and I always used to try and apply that to so many different positions. But Walker Little's going to have to prove that he's got the right attitude and aptitude to win that position.
Absolutely. And again, some people might get mad at me, but I kind of use the thing that, Cam Robinson played at Alabama. Walker Little played at Stanford. Sometimes I kind of don't like those too much of this. I like a lot of this, but not too much.
Don't overthink it. Don't
be a Stanford guy when it comes to playing against some of the guys you're going to have to play. The
Will Anderson.
Will Anderson,
who, by the way, has put about 20 pounds of muscle on his
that's who they're dealing with. So it really, I don't know what the answer is going to be. I don't know what it's going to finish. I know this. I know that they loved what Walker Little did in the offseason to get himself ready. So we'll see what happens.
Right. I wanted to make sure you said that before we're done. As far as what you're hearing, you feel like he has put a very, very good step forward in the offseason.
Yeah, he knows what his situation is, not only as far as whether he starts for the Jaguars, but his career going forward. You know, a third team, a tackle that's a swing tackle makes a lot less money than a starting left tackle. So, you know, a lot of it is, you know, you can say whatever you want, but that is a factor.
Like I told Leon the other day, I don't care what actually I do care what your opinion is of Jawan Taylor, but not too many of them had a high opinion of him when he left here, and he signed an $80 million contract.
Correct.
Because he started every game, basically.
Right. Correct.
And as long as you're viewed as starter, and that is at right tackle, still doesn't make any sense to me that they signed him for $60 million guaranteed in Kansas City and played him, intended to play him at left tackle, ended up playing him at right tackle.
I think what happens there a little bit is that when you're a contender and you have an issue in a spot and you think that spot's going to make a difference between being 1, 2, or 3 or 4, you pay the guy.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way it goes.
And
so,
they did.
But really, in all honesty, it's a starter to a starter, one way or another.
Exactly. All right, listen, starter to starter, I'm fired up and ready to go. Yep. I know you all are. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us, Campo and Joe. We will be out at training camp. Don't hesitate to reach out to us, and we'll start breaking it down week by week as we get ready for the Jaguars in 2024.
The Campo and Joe podcast is brought to you by Bold City Heating and Air. Fast and reliable AC service.